Hello again, friends. So a few weeks ago, I did a video where I synchronized the MPC sample with the Arturia Mini Freak, and I received a question in the comments. Raziel asks, so what do we do on the MPC side? This question pertains to the MPC sample's sync parameters. Today, in part 1 of this mini-series, we're going to revisit this topic, cover a few practical examples, and ultimately answer this question. Before we get started, if you guys happen to like my content, feel free to like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's take a look. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the Roland JX08. Quick housekeeping tip: if you happen to be using a Kai, Roland, or Korg product, best practice is to use MIDI Type A cables. I have a MIDI Type A to TRS cable connecting the MPC sample and the JX08. The JX08 is off camera for the moment. First, I want to go through the MIDI configurations of the MPC sample, just to give you a better idea of what's happening on the MPC side. MIDI port set to external. You have two options, USB or external, but because I'm connected via MIDI cable, we'll use the external option. MIDI in options is set to all. However, in this demonstration, the Akai is sending the MIDI, so we have a MIDI out going into the MIDI in of the JX08. MIDI out set to channel number 1, which will suffice for now. Pad MIDI in and pad MIDI out. This basically allows for external peripheral devices to play the samples of the MPC sample and vice versa. The MPC sample can be used as a isometric synthesizer keyboard in a sense. MIDI sync in is off because, again, I'm sending the sync signal to the JX08. However, the MIDI sync out is set to MIDI clock. You have a few options here, MTC, MIDI clock, and off, but I'm going to use the MIDI clock because I want the sequencer to move in tandem with the MPC sample. MIDI through can be set to on, although we're not using it. Receive program change off, and that's pretty much it. I'll go into the CV out, CV bass, and CV division a little bit later in this video. All right, so with all of the general housekeeping guidelines out of the way, let's see what this sounds like. I'm going to start the JX08 sequencer. All right, let's stop that for now. Now, watch what happens when I implement the MPC sample. Simple enough. Now, one thing to note, whenever I press play on the MPC sample, the tempo of the JX08 goes completely inert. So why is that? Well, it's because the JX08 tempo doesn't matter at this point. What does matter, however, is the tempo of the MPC sample. So at slower tempos, everything becomes disjointed because this arrangement was originally recorded at 160 BPM. In order to stabilize it, we'll just return to its original tempo and for the most part, that's how MIDI synchronization works when it comes down to using the MPC sample as the master clock. For the second half of this demonstration, we're going to talk about control voltage syncing, or CV syncing, because nothing beats good old TS cable when it comes down to synchronizing. The only unfortunate thing is that not all synthesizers are CV compatible, but it just so happens that the JX08 is. So let's go through the 3 CV parameters. Sync out, set to on, because I want the MPC sample to serve as the master clock. And then I have 2 parameters called CV sync bass and CV sync division. The best way to describe this is you set the bass to your bass number of beats, and then you set your sync division to how many pulses, how many CV pulses you want to dedicate to each beat. In my case, I want 4 pulses for every 1 beat. With that being said, the JX08 is quantized into 16th notes. In other words, I have 16 steps. 4 beats, 16 steps. So each beat consists of 4 16th notes. And that's pretty much what's happening right now. A more succinct explanation of that would be, if you have 4 beats in a measure, you take each beat divided by 4, 4, 8, 12, 16. 16 steps. So if you're working with a 16-step sequencer, it's best to set your bass to 1 and your sync division to 4. Okay, so the MIDI cable has been disconnected. All that's left is the CV cable. So let's see what happens. Now, notice this time I had to physically press the start button for the JX08. The reason being is because the sequencer needs to be initiated first, but notice that it's not moving. The reason being is because the JX08 is detecting that, or anticipating a CV pulse in order to propagate sequencer movement. In the absence of the start button, now, start. And this is also why the tempo readout is inert, because it is entirely dependent upon the external clock or the external CV. Now, let's mess around with our sync divisions. Watch what happens when I modulate from, or vacillate from 4 to 16, 32, so on and so on. It gets kind of crazy. Watch. Oops. Start. Here we go. So that's at 24 divisions. Far beyond the capacity of the JX08, which is the reason why the sequencer is moving so quickly. Scale it down. And now let's resynchronize it. All right. Let's minimize the divisions. Resynchronize. With fewer divisions, the sequencer ostensibly slows down because now I'm only allowing 2 pulses per beat. All right, let's return it back to 1/4. And now we have near perfectly synced 16th notes. I'm hoping that you guys found that useful. So all in all, the MPC Sample is quite ubiquitous when it comes down to synchronizing with other devices, because it pretty much synchronizes with anything MIDI compatible, anything control voltage compatible. It's pretty eclectic in its capabilities on that front. If you guys have any questions about anything that happened here today, please feel free to leave those questions in the comments and I'll be sure to get back with you. Thank you.